Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tea Time. I'm your host, T. Falcon Napier, and today we're joined by Dr. David Chinsky. David is the founder of the Institute for Leadership Fitness and author of The Fit Leader's Companion, a down-to-earth guide for sustainable leadership success. He's also the creator of the Fit Leaders Program and the Fit Leaders Academy, which provides experiences that prepare organizational leaders for careers marked by sustained contribution. To date, over 5,000 leaders from across the U.S. and all around the globe have participated in the Institute's leadership fitness experiences. In addition, David has been a certified ChangeWorks master consultant for over a decade. I'll attach his full bio and contact information in the description block just below this video. So David, welcome to Tea Time.
Thank you so much, T. It's a pleasure to be with you. And it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years of practicing your model.
Well, time has certainly flown, but one of the things that maybe we'll get some time to talk about as we work our way through our chat today is how you've kind of integrated what you've learned from ChangeWorks and from the principles of tension management into the work that you're doing with your leaders in your institute. But I'm very curious, with everything that's been going on for the past couple of years, what's really been happening in the world of leadership itself?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, particularly right now, is how do you lead in a virtual environment? A lot of leaders today find themselves with teams that are scattered in their own geography and, of course, across the country and sometimes across the world. So learning how to motivate people, keeping people motivated, keeping people aligned with the vision, the strategy, the goal sets of the organization have become a real challenge. And it's been important to maintain regular communication, finding ways to provide people with what it is they need to feel like they're connected. It's a lot easier to connect people when they're all in the same place. The culture evolves around the water cooler, the so-called water cooler. And now we've got people that are many just living in their home, working in their home, and are trying to maintain some semblance of community. So that's one of the things. And what I think is really a great outcome, actually, of COVID, if there could be a good outcome of COVID, it's that I think leaders have learned to trust that their people can do work without being in the office. So I remember years and years ago developing policies around telework and telecommuting, and it was only afforded to so many people, and only the people that we really trusted, wouldn't be going to the movies during the day or doing wash or cooking. And so now I think we see the results of letting people work from home and having more control over their time and over their work. And I think we've seen that they can be productive to the point where a lot of people want to keep doing it.
Right. Did you find that people were reluctant adopters of technology or remote working initially, and then the realities of COVID came along? They had no choice.
Yes.
But to do things remotely, and they had this aha kind of an experience, and then they went, we could have done this long ago.
Yes,
so,
exactly. Yeah. I think that is probably the way a lot of people are viewing it, that we could have done this a long time ago. And COVID has probably allowed us to take an advance into the future by 10 years. It would have taken us a decade probably to get to the same place that we are today out of necessity.
That's right. That's right.
And so I think it's really cool that we've had this opportunity to learn new ways of doing our work together.
Well, and I think that also applies to the work that you're doing with your clients. I'm going to imagine that pre-COVID, the majority of your interactions would have been face-to-face, or large portions of it would have been done face-to-face in a traditional training kind of a setting. Well, how's that changed?
Yes, it's changed a lot. My commute is about 30 seconds these days. I don't have to put gas in my car, and my dry cleaning bills has gone down because it's been a bit more casual as well in terms of how you interact with your clients, because they're all at home and casual. So yes, it used to be stand up in a classroom 5 days a week. And now it's half-day session. One of the things that we have found is that you can't do virtual for a full day. You can't be teaching a class online 8 hours. So what we've adapted it, we've adapted it to half-day sessions. So what usually took 4 full days of learning over the course of several months, we now do 8 half-day sessions. And what I like about that is it allows me as a facilitator to maintain that longer-term relationship with my clients. So it used to be 4 days, which was nice, and now I have 8 days that are usually scheduled every other week with my clients. And so it's actually helped the learning process as well.
Has it altered the curriculum? Because if it's now broken into half-day sessions, that gives us more time for homework or application back on the job. Have you modified things with that in mind?
So in my program, I haven't had to do that so much because our curriculum is very modularized already. So we have 40 learning modules, and we typically teach 16 of them over a 4-day process. Wow. So we teach 4 a day. Now we teach 2 every half-day session. So I've been able to sequence the material in a way that allows us to get through a half a day, and over the course of 8 half-day sessions, still get those 16 modules delivered. And our clients can pick whatever 16 modules they want from the library of 40.
Excellent, excellent. And so I'm kind of curious, obviously this changes the definition of what leadership is. This whole thing we've been going through with COVID kind of changes how it's all handled, how it's all deployed. Are you finding that there are certain people who might have been very effective leaders in the pre-COVID world, but are struggling to be effective leaders in the reality that we face today?
Yes, I am. I'm finding that there are some leaders that have traditionally liked being in the same location as their people, where they can keep tabs on their people. They felt more secure in their management and leadership function. And now it's a struggle for them. And even wondering, what is the value add that I'm creating for my organization? If people can go off and be so successful and productive doing great work, what's my role? And so I think that some of the fundamental reasons that we have leaders still are there, which is obviously to set a clear direction for that team, to make sure that you're aligning everyone with that. And that's where the regular communication comes in, and then motivating people. So, those are things that I think leaders still need to do, even though they need to do them differently. And some of the leaders of the past have learned that they have to let go more. Right. They have to trust that their people have always had the ability to do great work. And it becomes more of a coaching mindset as opposed to a telling or controlling mindset. Because most people, when left to their own, they're going to be able to do the good work that we need them to do. So we don't need as much management. See, that's the challenge I think we've always had, T. Even before COVID, we have usually seen leaders overmanage and underlead. If they've gotten into the weeds too much and they want to have too much control, as opposed to just being clear about where we're headed. That's our job as leaders, to kind of point to the future that we're trying to create for our organization and for our clients, and then just give people what they need to be successful.
Very interesting. And so let's talk a little bit about the future now. When you think about what leadership is going to really look like and how it's going to be deployed from this point forward, are there some differences than we might have seen prior to COVID? So what's the vision for the future of leadership? Yeah,
well, the vision, if I look a little further out, I just finished a great book called AI 2041, Artificial Intelligence 2041. And what's really fascinating is that AI is evolving so rapidly that one day, even some leadership functions could be automated. And as I was reading this book, I was thinking, gee, I wonder if my job as a trainer could be automated, because at some point it could be. And I think there are going to be elements of how we help people do their work that are going to be more AI driven and less kind of human driven.
Sure.
Now, the empathy and the concern for making sure people have what they need, those are probably always going to be there to some extent. Although I think there's going to be a whole bunch of changes that we're not ready for. There's going to be a lot of displacement.
Yeah, I've heard this from a few other clients as well, and certainly, if we just look about what's happened to technology in the last handful of years, when you and I first started out there as trainers and consultants, we had zero possibility of deploying our programming up online somewhere. It just wasn't there.
Right.
And so we had no choice but to stand in front of a different audience and recite the exact same program over and over again. Well, now that there are so many on-demand learning platforms, there is a large body of what we bring to our audiences that could be locked into some other delivery format, which to me is fine, because I'd rather have my time face-to-face with a student where we can talk about what their individual challenges are, what their individual possibilities are, their projects. I'd like to have that kind of discussion. And I don't know that AI can ever replace that kind of coaching or one-on-one mentoring kind of quality. But certainly, when it comes to delivering perfunctory directions, perfunctory knowledge, no, that can be, I think automated. That still has to scare a lot of leaders, though.
I think it probably does. Although life is scary, and I think that leaders who are embracing the possibilities that might come are just learning to go with the flow. And there are some people who probably, maybe to the point that you're driving at with your question, are going to drop out of the leadership function. They're going to realize that it isn't what they signed up for. This isn't what they thought this was going to be for the rest of their career. And so just like we're asking our customers and our employees to adapt with change, leaders themselves are going to have to adapt. And I think that's what we've been seeing in this environment.
I think you're right. Yeah, one of the things that I bring up with my audiences is that if people are struggling and sometimes failing to accomplish whatever, there seems to be 4 root causes. It's either because they're unaware of something, that if they were aware of it, the whole world would suddenly fall nicely into place. They're unable to do it, so they're lacking in some kind of knowledge or skill or some experience in doing it, some coaching. They're unwilling to do it. Maybe they're fully aware and fully able. They just don't want to do it. So there's this willingness issue. I don't want to. But that last one is the one you're talking about. And that's about suitability. Maybe, just maybe, what the job now is no longer matches that individual. And maybe it isn't a whole job and individual have no connection. Maybe it's just a specific skill that is just not something they are able to do. And so sometimes the suitability can be that granular.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit more about your program then. Have you found that you needed to expand any of your modules or add a module specifically about this whole change in the dynamic of leadership, or is that module already there, but suddenly now your clients are choosing it a little bit more? So
we actually did write some new material. I wrote 8 new modules actually during COVID. And many of them were focused around the vitality component of our model. So as you know, our model focuses on 4 different phases. I call them phases of leadership fitness: clarity, confidence, effectiveness, and vitality. So we've done a lot more work around mindfulness, helping people relax and find time to be still and to reflect so that they can be more powerful in their leadership in their organizations. We've added more around how to be a coach. So we never really had a module that focused on the coaching model.
Sure.
We always offered coaching as a part of our program, although we never talked to our customers in terms of how they might be more coach-like.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a module called the coaching mindset. We also have a new module called the resiliency reserve.
Oh, okay.
So, how do you make sure your tank is full?
Yeah.
And how can you bounce back from COVID or from anything that might happen to you, right?
Exactly right.
And so, yes, we have definitely built some modules based on the current experiences that our clients, our leaders are facing. And the vitality piece, I think, has become even more crucial. When we built our model back in 2008, we thought we'd be laughed out of the boardrooms. Oh, you're going to teach about nutrition and exercise and
vitality,
rejuvenation. Right. No, thank you. So I really didn't think it was going to go as well as it did. Mm-hmm. And it's still, to this day, is a differentiation point for what we do. I would have thought by now many other training companies, now they'll watch your video and they'll go out and they'll start adding vitality to their program.
Well, I think it's critical because
it resonates.
Just look at how an individual operates. They could have all of the clarity. What are the other two? Remind everyone what the other two.
Clarity, confidence, and effectiveness.
So they could have those perfectly ready to go. But if physically they are exhausted, emotionally they are drained, they're stressed, how can they begin to go out there and do those things? So
that's what we believe. We believe very strongly. It's an integrated experience.
So literally that one seems to be the governing a face, if you will, of leadership, because you got to have the energy, people are going to pick up on that. You have to have that for yourself. You have to have that available in sufficient quantity that others can kind of use a little bit of yours while they're finding their own.
Yes. So absolutely.
So I'm curious then, Art, you've got these 8 new modules, and this gets into my next question. I'm always wondering if we know where leadership is right now, and we know where leadership needs to get, why is leadership not already there? Well, it's not already there because there is some obstacle or set of obstacles, real or imagined, that are in their way. And so somehow or another, we have to be able to identify these obstacles, determine whether or not it's just something I've got to get people's thinking right, or whether it really is something that's more on the practical side of things, that they need to know, or a resource they need to have, whatever it is, in order to move on. So this idea about what's in their way of getting there. And so, but I had another little question kind of combining with that. You've introduced 8 new modules. Your program is 16 modules, and it's kind of like your clients get to kind of pick and choose. I imagine there's some that are just core to it, but they get to pick and choose. So if they are picking some or all of the 8 you've developed during COVID, what are they setting aside now?
So to clarify, we have 40 modules. Our program actually comprises 40 modules, and our typical engagement is 16 of those 40.
Oh, but they could take all 40 if they wanted.
They could take all 40. They could take 32. They could take
whatever level of commitment.
Our typical client engagement, though, is a 4-month program where we'll do 4 days a month apart, and we do 4 modules in a day. So that's 4 by 4, 16. Although we've had clients that have gone through all of our modules. To your point, though, what we find is that clients are still picking a variety of modules from our 4 phases, from clarity, confidence, effectiveness, and vitality. We are seeing, though, more vitality modules being picked today to support what we've just been discussing. I think that organizations get it now. They realize that people need that support. They need to be able to take care of themselves if they're going to take care of the customer and take care of their employees.
Absolutely right. Well, and I hope they're doing that by adding 4 and taking it up to 20 instead of by getting rid of some other topic that they would have chosen.
Yes, I think that is what they're doing. And what we're finding is that for some clients, we'll do like 16, our typical engagement, and then we're hired to come back and do another 16.
All right. Okay. So fine.
For the same group the next year or later in the year. So
well, I'm sure you're already kind of watching this, but it'd be very curious to know if you could compare pre-COVID to life as we have it now, which were the 16 they would automatically pick, or which ones was there a rank as they go about choosing them? Are you part of that process to go, interesting, the very first module that they came to was this. The very first one they mentioned wanting was this.
Yes.
You know?
We do have a handful of those modules that seem to resonate right away with our customers. One is called the gift of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
How do you effectively have conversations that drive high performance in the organization? Sure. And we have a process, a 7-step process that guides leaders to do that. Conflict is another. Right. We always have conflict in our lives, so the conflict manager is a very popular module. The humble servant is also a very popular module where we introduce the concept of servant leadership that Robert Greenleaf developed back in the 1970s when he was at AT&T. So what I really enjoy seeing is the appreciation on the part of my customers for this variety of exposure for their customers. Or I'm sorry, what I really appreciate is the appreciation on the part of my customers for all of the different components of our model, because it helps build their leaders in some new ways.
Excellent. Yeah, well, my area of interest is intention management. And so I'm always wondering, like, what are they paying attention to? What was the first thing that grabbed their attention? And then you kind of work your way down the list. So I was kind of curious if that's ever been something that you kind of noticed along the way or build into your way of doing it, just so maybe some other time we could talk about that.
Well, and T, you know that we actually have built your change grid into one of our modules. So we actually have a module called the Leadership Fit Change Profile, and it's all about change and tension and where people sit on the change grid. And it's one of our very popular modules.
Excellent. Well, yay. Because really, obviously I believe that everything is about tension management, whether we're looking at leadership or management or sales or whatever. Sooner or later, it boils down to someone is trying to manage somebody else's level of productive tension. And they got to be able to do that effectively for themselves before they can begin to do it effectively on someone else. And so life is tension management. Yeah. Now, getting back to that idea about obstacles that are standing in the way.
Yes.
Now, obviously, the customers that you have are well on their way to getting over whatever those obstacles may be. But what about the companies that you know about or whatever that aren't part of your base? What is the struggle? What are their obstacles they're going to be facing?
Yeah, I think a big one is fear. Fear of change. Fear of letting go, a fear of creating an environment where it's safe for people to disagree and push back. There's a concept that's been out there for a while. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called psychological safety. How do you create an environment where people feel safe to push back on the boss? And there's a lot of fear in the organization. I see it in my work all the time. Where people have great ideas and those ideas never go anywhere because people just suppress those urges, those creative, innovative urges, because there are people perhaps above them that just don't think that they'll be able to convince the people above them that this is a good way to go. I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, yeah. So it's much easier to just stay with the status quo than to run the risk of I don't want to mix my metaphors, but rocking the boat, tipping over the apple cart, whatever. People are concerned, I think, a lot about what does their future look like. This is causing all kinds of upheaval at all sorts of levels, and so they have to be worried about that as well.
And that's something that I find that I've spent a lot of time in the classroom, virtually or in person, coaching people on to keep pushing back, to not resign themselves to the fact that this isn't going to work because the person above you isn't supporting you. There are ways to have conversations. There are ways to attract allies, to maybe slowly, although surely, moving in that direction that is going to take the organization to a better place, because there are so many great ideas and so many great process innovations that are being stalled because there's not this psychological safety. So empowering people to be able to deal with that unsafe environment and to not perpetuate it, right? So we might not be able to change what's happening above us right away, although too often we just perpetuate it because, oh, that's how we do things here. So I'm going to do the same thing with my people. I'm not going to let them speak up and push back. So sometimes we just have to be a model in the organization of how it can work.
Yeah. And so, again, we're talking about the companies that are out there that aren't part of your Leadership Institute. What could they be doing? Or I guess I'm kind of asking, how do you initiate a conversation with a company around doing this? I mean, how do they already have the awareness and they're reaching out to you? Do you try to stimulate that awareness? So what do these companies need?
It happens in all of those ways. Yeah. Okay. So, a lot of the times we get an organization coming to us saying, hey, we just talked to someone who's gone through your program and it sounds interesting and we'd like you to come and do it for us. So we've already kind of gotten that testimonial from someone they trust, someone they know.
Right.
And we're just going out and talking to people that we think would be great customers. In fact, my largest customer right now was a relationship I initiated several years ago, and it took 18 months to close the deal. And now they're our largest customer.
Right.
And we had to talk about all of the different outcomes that we saw coming from our partnership with them. And they probably didn't agree with everything that we were talking about. They might have said, oh, we don't think these things are necessary. And yet they were willing to go along with our recommendations. And we've been working with them for a long, long time.
Sure.
So there's clearly value there. And they were willing to let the process work. And we've helped shift their culture, shift the way work gets done in their organization, which is really why we do what we do.
Right. Well, we're talking about tension management again. Change occurs when someone finally says enough. Now, hopefully things haven't gotten too bad before that word comes in their head. But sometimes people wait until things are so bleak that they go, enough, we have to do something to change. So I guess my question for you is, what would be some of the early warning signs or clear indicators that it's time for companies to start thinking a bit more about leadership fitness?
I think if people are leaving the organization because they're burned out, people who don't want to move into leadership positions because they don't want the headache, they don't want the aggravation, the frustration. I see this sometimes in organizations, and I always, want to try to help the organization show how people can actually make a contribution in a leadership role. And yet, if the culture is such that people are being scared away from wanting to move into leadership, there's probably an opportunity there for us to do some work.
Is the great resignation playing itself out at leadership levels as well?
It is. There are people who have said, I've had enough.
Right.
I don't want this anymore. And sometimes they're going out and doing their own thing, right? Yeah. So there's some new entrepreneurial ventures that some of those people are doing. And depending on where they are in their life cycle, they just might decide, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I'm just kind of curious, it's like, I would hope that a lot of the people that are listening to this interview are people who are running organizations, they're interested in leadership, or I don't know why they were attracted to listen to this anyway. So I just want to make sure that we can say to them, if you are noticing the following things, don't wait for it to get any worse. Now is the time to start doing something to turn that around. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
what would you recommend? What should people be doing? Or I guess I'm saying, like, how do they reach you? How do they get in conversations with you?
Well, they can go to my website. My website is fitleadersacademy.com,
Yeah, and I'll put that up on screen for everybody.
fitleadersacademy.com.
Yep.
And that'll give a lot of information about what we do and who we do it for. And you can take a look at all of the 40 modules
Sure.
that we have, that we offer to our customers. I can give you my email address. It's a long one. If you put it up, that'll make it easier for people. It's just david.chinsky, Chinsky, at instituteforleadershipfitness.com.
Okay. That's great. All right. So any final words you'd like to share with anyone before we're done for today?
I just want to, give you a shout out for the tremendous contribution that you've made to the world with your model of productive tension. I have spent lots and lots of time using your tools and working with colleagues of mine that are also customers of yours and graduates of your program. So I think that has just opened up all kinds of pathways to grow.
Wonderful.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, then, David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Great success in the future. And if you'd ever like to be a guest on here again, you just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to set up a time. So thank you. And thanks, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, Steve.